The alarm on the bridge screamed before anyone even sat down. 11 enemy ships had dropped out of warp inside a dead-end system, cornered, with nowhere left to run. I gripped the rail of the observation deck and watched their weapons go dark all at once. Every single ship, in perfect timing. That kind of order does not happen by accident. It meant their command was still working, even after months of losing. Then the message came through on the open channel, in a shaking voice that had clearly practiced this line many times. We surrender without conditions. We ask for the mercy of Earth. We ask that you do not send what you sent to the burned colony of Ashvale. Nobody on the bridge moved. I had heard whispers about Ashvale before, always in half sentences, always followed by silence. Nobody wanted to finish the story out loud. Captain Doran did not even blink. She pressed the comm button herself. Message received, stand by. Then she turned to me, because I was the only officer on that bridge, cleared for special contact operations, and she said the 4 words I had been dreading since the day I got this posting. Get Elena up here. Elena Marsh came up from the lower deck in off-duty clothes, her hair still damp, holding a cup of tea like she had been pulled away from something far more important than the surrender of an entire war fleet. She was young, maybe 25, with a calm face that did not match the situation at all. The enemy commanders, when they finally saw her on their screens, would spend several long minutes trying to figure out where the real negotiator was standing, off camera, because surely this quiet young woman was not the one in charge. Report, she said, not even looking at me, sipping her tea like she was asking about the weather outside. 11 ships, full surrender, Captain Doran said. They specifically asked not to get what Ashvale got. Smart of them, Elena said quietly. What actually happened at Ashvale? I asked, even though I knew I probably should not. I had been on this ship for months, and nobody would explain it to me, and the silence around it had become the worst-kept secret in the entire fleet. Elena looked at me for a moment, deciding whether I could handle the answer. We fed them, she said. I waited for the rest of the story. There was no rest of the story. That is it, I said. You just fed them. Both sides of that war had been starving their own people to keep soldiers armed for 6 straight years, she said. We did not attack anyone. We did not punish anyone. We landed 40 transport ships loaded with food, clean water, and medical supplies, and we gave it to every single person there, no conditions attached. Then our people sat every commander down at the same table and asked them, calmly, if they still wanted to keep fighting now that starvation was no longer forcing their hand. And, I asked. The war ended in 11 days, she said, not because we defeated anyone, because we took away the reason they were fighting, and then made every leader explain, in front of their own people, why they still wanted more suffering. That does not sound frightening, I said. That sounds kind. Elena smiled, but it was not a warm smile. It depends which side of the table you are sitting on, she said. Ask any commander who built his entire power on controlling who eats and who starves what it felt like to have that taken from him in one afternoon, gently, in front of his own soldiers, by people he had been told were too dangerous to even speak with. We never raised a weapon against him. We just made him powerless, quietly, permanently, while everyone watched. The shuttle that carried us out to the enemy flagship held 6 people. 2 engineers, a medical officer, a translator, Elena, and me, because Captain Doran decided I needed to witness this myself instead of hearing it secondhand for the rest of my career. The commanders who greeted us wore ceremonial restraint bands around their wrists, worn by choice, a gesture of complete surrender in their culture, and they knelt in a long line across their own command deck. Their fleet leader, an older figure with tired eyes, bowed all the way to the floor and said through the translator, "We ask only that it be quick, and that you spare the young ones from example." Elena crouched down in front of her. She actually lowered herself so she was not looking down at a kneeling enemy leader, teacup somehow still balanced in her hand. "Nobody is dying today," she said gently. "Please stand. You are hurting my neck looking at you like that." The fleet leader did not move. I do not think she understood the words as anything other than a threat dressed in soft language. "Your engines are failing," Elena said instead, glancing at the dim readouts still glowing weakly across the bridge. Your medical bay has been over capacity for weeks. Your food records show your crew has been running on half rations since the last major battle. You are not really a fleet anymore. You are 11 crowded hospitals being held together by people too proud to admit they are dying. The fleet leader said nothing, because it was true, and everyone there knew it. Here is your mercy, Elena said. My engineers are going to repair whatever can be repaired on your ships. My medical officer is bringing supplies to stabilize your sick and wounded. And you, she said, pointing gently at the kneeling leader, are going to stand up, because in a few hours, a formal review ship is going to arrive to process your surrender properly, and I need you standing on your own feet, in front of your own crew, looking like the leader who brought them home alive. Not like something we broke. The fleet leader's translator crackled with something that sounded like confusion given a voice. You are not going to punish us, she said slowly, like she was still waiting for the trick. We are going to rebuild you, Elena said. Just enough that you will always remember who did it, and generously enough that every young soldier on this ship watches their commander get lifted back up by the very people they were warned were monsters, instead of being destroyed by them. That is the entire plan, fleet leader. That is what we send instead of weapons. I watched them work for 6 straight hours. I watched Elena sit beside frightened soldiers who flinched every time she got close, because their whole culture had built stories around what would happen if they were ever caught by our side. I watched her skip the speeches and the performance, and just quietly do the hard, unglamorous work of triage and repair, alongside 2 engineers who complained the entire time about how differently the enemy wired their ships. By the end of it, the fleet leader was standing tall. Not because Elena ordered her to, because somewhere in those 6 hours, standing had stopped being a lie she had to perform for her crew, and had slowly become something real. Before we left, the fleet leader asked the question every defeated leader eventually asks. Why do this, she said. You had every right to end us completely. Every rule of war allowed it. Elena went quiet for a moment, the only quiet moment I saw from her that entire day. Because the whole galaxy is watching how we treat the people who lose, she said finally. Every group out there right now is deciding whether surrendering to us means dying with some dignity, or dying anyway, just slower and quieter. We need that answer to always be the right one, every single time, or nobody will ever surrender to us again. They will just keep fighting until the very last ship, the very last soldier, because dying while fighting will always look better than dying on your knees. She looked back at the fleet leader, steady and calm. So no, we are not gentle because we are weak, she continued. We are gentle because it works better than any weapon we have ever built. It ends wars in days instead of years. It costs us supplies and doctors instead of soldiers. And it means someone like you goes home one day and tells the next commander, the next leader thinking about fighting until the very end, that surrendering to humans does not end the way they were told it would. We flew back to our ship in silence. Nobody spoke the whole way. I kept thinking about the stories I had heard before that day, passed down from crews who had faced our side long before anyone truly understood what our people were sent to do. They called us the monsters that humanity sends when a war has gone on far too long. They were not exactly wrong. They simply had the wrong idea about what kind of monster real mercy creates. Because the loudest weapon we ever built was never a gun, or a warship, or a wall of fire in the sky. It was a quiet young woman with a cup of tea, kneeling beside a broken enemy, choosing to build instead of destroy, and somehow, that choice ended a war that violence never could. Years later, when people asked me what I saw out there, I never mentioned the ships, or the weapons, or the endless dark of space between the stars. I told them about a tired old commander finally standing back up on her own 2 feet, looking her frightened crew in the eyes, because one small act of mercy gave her the strength to become a leader again, instead of a prisoner. That is the story nobody expects when they hear about the monsters Earth sends into war. Not fear, not fire, just the quiet, patient choice to lift someone back up, even after everything they had done, because in the end, that choice was the only weapon strong enough to finally end the fighting for good.